Scout bikers are great when you have to hit something very hard very quickly. In this video we'll take a look at their rules on the battlefield. Hello again and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where we like to focus on getting the most out of our models on the tabletop. We're continuing in our look through the units in the new Space Marine Codex. I say new, it has been out for quite a while now, but today it's time to turn our lens on the Scout Bike Squad. In this video we'll take a look at their datasheets, any obvious synergies, any obvious buffs we can give them, and how I'd run them myself on the battlefield. In the background, the Space Marine Scouts operate as fairly independent reconnaissance and sabotage units, and are made up of scouts who are in the final stages of their training. They're well known for placing booby traps and harassing enemy supply lines, hurtling out of nowhere and disappearing before more concentrated force is brought to bear. So let's see how this is reflected on the tabletop. So Scout Bikes are a fast attack choice for Codex Space Marines. You buy them in a squad of 3, they have a movement of 16, weapon skill and ballistic skill of 3 up, strength 4, toughness 5, 2 wounds, 1 attack, leadership 7 and a 4 up save. The sergeant of course has an additional pip of leadership and an additional attack, so he has 2 attacks. They're all armed with an Astarte Shotgun, their bike has a twin bolt gun, they have a bolt pistol, a combat knife and frag and crack grenades. So frankly they're carrying an absolute ton of combat gear around, which is one of the reasons why they are such a solid unit on the battlefield. The Astarte Shotgun is 12-inch range, assault 2, strength 4, and it goes up to strength 5 when it's within half range, so 6-inch range. You can absolutely blaze away with both this and the twin bolt guns in each turn, so that means that each scout biker can be blazing away with 6 strength 4 shots at 12-inch range, or 4 shots at 24-inch range. This is all included for the very reasonable points cost of just 23 points per model. So your base squad of 3 is 69 points. They're really no slouch in close combat either, as they each have a combat knife, meaning they'll have base of 2 attacks, going up to 3 attacks each with shock assault, so they're basically hitting as hard as an intercessor there. Their movement is absolutely phenomenal. 16-inch move is enough to get you out from behind cover all the way up to the enemy's face in a lot of situations, and this can be further augmented by their turbo boost rule, which means that if they advance they automatically go 6 inches. You don't have to roll. They'll still be able to fire their Astarte shotguns after this as their assault weapons, and it's just hilarious if they're white scars because then they can still charge too. They have a few war gear options. The sergeant can take one weapon from the sergeant's weapons list instead of his bolt pistol, which frankly is just hilarious because it means that he can take a storm bolter instead of the bolt pistol for a mere 2 points. So rules wise, this guy can fire his storm bolter, regular twin bolt guns and also his shotgun all in one go. Not sure how he's quite going to manage that with the laws of physics and only having 2 hands, but rules as written he can. This means that your scout sergeant can be spitting out 10 strength 4 shots per turn, even after hurtling around 16 inches. We're getting into the levels of aggressor territory firepower here, which is pretty mad. Obviously there are other options besides the storm bolter, but I think that one's probably the best. Of course you could equip him for close combat, perhaps throwing a cheeky thunder hammer in there. Could be a very nasty surprise, particularly if you're white scars and they can move quite so far before they charge. The other option that the scout squads have is that they can take one Astarte's grenade launcher instead of one twin bolt gun. I'm afraid as it stands I really wouldn't bother doing this. 4 strength 4 shots are more likely going to be more worth it than taking the Astarte's grenade launcher, which essentially fires either a frag grenade or a crack grenade, though it counts as an assault weapon, so they can still fire this and their shotgun in the same turn. I'm afraid I just prefer to have the twin bolter at the moment, particularly as the Astarte's grenade launcher costs more. Other than the turbo boost rule that we've already mentioned, they have Angels of Death, so an extra attack on the charge with shock assault, bolter discipline, meaning that they can move and shoot those 4 twin bolter shots at 24-inch range, and combat doctrines, meaning when you're in the tactical doctrine, they'll be at AP -1. Very nice. They can also combat squad if you should feel the need to. Interestingly, they have a rule where if you have 9 models in the squad, they can be split up into 3 units of 3 at the start of the game, which to be fair could make some interesting multiple small unit annoyance units. Though if you're not short of the slots, I'd probably just take them as individual units because you get those OP sergeants. So overall, the scout biker squads are good harassment units. They have a mad movement, very decent firepower for the points, and pretty decent close combat as well. Their main weakness is durability, only having a 4+ save means that they're quite squishy to return firepower. Let's look at their chapter synergies now. Ultramarines are going to get on well with these guys as they love being in tactical doctrine, plus being able to fall back and shoot certainly isn't a bad option for these guys with their heavy shooting, and potentially wanting to get into close combat. White Scars are going to be the kings with these guys. They synergize very well with all of their bike stratagems, and being able to advance and charge with, as we said, 22-inch movement, then their charge will mean that they should be able to threaten to tag units that are around 29 to 30 inches away. Could be very powerful if you can tie up a shooting unit with these guys, plus whatever damage they do. White Scars also have some interesting options for moving, assaulting and shooting with rapid fire weapons, which is almost made for the scout bikers really, as it doesn't really affect most of the other units all that much. Iron Hands are very decent, giving a 6-up feel no pain to a fragile unit can certainly help them out a lot, and of course boosted Overwatch never hurts. Raven Guard can again buff their durability with always counting in cover greater than 12 inches away, will definitely help them survive some scattered anti-infantry fire a bit more. Salamanders can be good for multiple small units with their Master Artisan style rerolls. If you should include combi melters or flamers on these guys, then Salamanders will also get better benefit out of that. Imperial and Crimson Fists also get massive buffs out of these guys, as they have a whole ton of bolt weapons. If you include the Sergeant, each 3-man squad will be throwing out 16 bolt shots a turn, so getting extras on 6s and then either ignore cover or potentially +1 to hit against infantry is really going to make their firepower even more efficient. Black Templars could help out a little with charging, and Blood Angels will make these guys hit like trucks on the charge, making them a very nice little skirmish unit with decent shooting and also decent close combat. In terms of character support, for the most part I probably wouldn't bother overloading these guys with characters. They're mainly going to have the advantage of being incredibly fast, so being able to position themselves optimally and trying to keep away from the enemy or out of line of sight. If you are facing a horde that needs to be gunned down though, you could swoop them into character auras and unload a whole salvo of bolt shots. So captains, lieutenants, chapter masters, all the normal things will certainly do you no harm. If you were feeling fluffy, you could certainly run them alongside a captain or Khan on a bike. They could screen some shots from him and also benefit from his aura. We'll take a look at the main rulebook stratagems for them now. They have their own one called Cluster Mines. Basically, if your scout squad is engaged in close combat and you fall back on a 2-up, the unit they fell back from will take D3 mortal wounds, and that will cost you 1 command point. Not too bad, maybe could be worth it if they're engaged with a fighty character that didn't wipe the squad, but pretty situational. Another fairly unique one is Skilled Riders for 2 command points. If your unit moves in the movement phase, it'll get a 4-up invul, and if it advances, it'll get a 3-up invul against ranged attacks. This could be very powerful for actually turning them into a decently durable unit instead of just a glass hammer, but you're only really going to see any benefit out of it on a very large squad, so taking the full 9 men for example. Other options include Transhuman Physiology to try and let them shrug off some anti-tank type fire, or perhaps Honour the Chapter if you really need to finish off an infantry unit or pile into something key to stop it shooting next turn. In terms of how I'd use these guys on the tabletop, I think they'd be optimally fielded in multiple small units, so taking the 3 bikers for 69 points and buying the Sergeant a Stormbolter for 71 points. They really have a mad damage output. If you do get them within 12-inch range, then that little squad will be putting out 22 strength 4 shots, which could potentially be at AP-1 in the tactical doctrine. That's incredibly hard hitting, and then they can also charge after that for an additional 10 attacks in the fight phase if they needed it. If I was including 1, I'd be very tempted to include 3 as multiple small units to harass the enemy. I'd look to be using their very high movement to either outrange enemy firepower, hide behind terrain, or potentially go forward very fast and make long charges to tie up units that the enemy doesn't want in close combat. If they do get shot by any focused firepower, they will most certainly die, but that isn't really the biggest deal when they cost such a small amount of points. Overall, I think that the scout bikers can certainly be competitive. If they're not dealt with fairly early, then they will make a massive dent in any enemy infantry, and certainly have the potential to kill far above their points cost. Their main competitor is the regular bike squad, who have the disadvantage of not being able to take those nice free shotguns and slightly shorter movement, and they cost a bit more, but do have the advantage of being able to take special weapons and of course having power armor, which increases their durability significantly. Out of the two, I actually prefer the scout bikes to the regular bike squad. That really high firepower rate is hard to turn down. I certainly think they're a decently competitive unit. I could certainly see them filling out a brigade to help out a big marine list. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. If there are any rules that I've got wrong, or if I've missed anything key about this unit that you think is important. As always, thank you for listening to an Auspex Tactics video. Feel free to subscribe for more Space Marine content every week, and feel free to support my Patreon if you'd like to help out the channel. Thanks very much for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.